Chapter 19. Daddy was working on the fence on the back 40 with a guy that helped him sometimes, and he had left me in the house to do my homework. I really wanted some candy, but we didn't have any. I was thinking if the stupid TV hadn't been advertising Hershey bars, that I wouldn't have wanted one in the first place. I opened a drawer of my nightstand and fished out the $10 bill that I'd gotten from Bob and Nancy for Christmas. They got me some clothes and an Aerosmith CD too. They were always very generous to me, even though they had like 100 kids and grandkids. I looked at the $10 bill for a moment. Yeah, I could drive, so why couldn't I just go to the 7-Eleven and buy a Hershey bar? I put on my coat and held Yellow back as I headed out the door. Daddy had a Chevy Silverado that was a few years old, and it was a 4-wheel drive. It was dark blue, and I loved the sound of it as it started up. I changed the radio station to my favorite one and turned up the heat. I was cranking some ZZ Top as I put the truck in gear. I'd only driven on the road once before, and that was just to go down the street to Bob and Nancy's house. My dad had been with me. I pulled onto the road and watched my speed. It was different than riding through the pasture. I knew about stop signs and stop lights, and then I had to slow down to make a curve, but the store was only 3 miles away, and it was pretty much a straight shot. I parked on the side of the store. No one seemed to notice that a 9-year-old had just gotten out of the driver's side of a truck, so I went inside and bought 2 Hershey bars. I waited by the truck until there were no prying eyes, and then I got in and started driving home. We'd had a lot of rain the week before and the ground was soggy. I got sidetracked and drove past the grade school, which was not on the way home. I saw a smaller truck stuck in a ditch. I pondered how that had happened. His truck didn't seem to be wrecked, just stuck in a ditch. I pulled over. He looked up as I got out of the truck. He had a weird look on his face. "Did you just get out of that truck?" he asked. I couldn't believe he was asking me that. He just seen me do it. "Yeah, I can pull your truck out for you," I replied in an unconcerned tone. He also smelled like booze, so no doubt he'd been driving drunk. He was rubbing his head as if something was really bothering him. Yeah, okay, but I don't have anything to tow with." "I have a chain," I replied as I walked to the bed of the truck and opened the toolbox that was mounted against the cab of the truck. It was a huge white box that fit across the bed of the truck, fastened to both sides of the bed. I was going to pull the chain over the side of the truck, but then I realized I'd only scratched the paint. "Here, I'll get it," the man offered. He pulled the chain up and over the side of the truck and I guided it. I turned the truck around and backed it towards the front of his truck. When I got out, the guy had hooked the chain to the towing hook on back of Daddy's truck. He walked to the front of his truck and hooked the chain to the bumper. I shook my head and said, "Not there. You'll have to hook the chain to the frame. You'll just pull the bumper off if I pull like that." He turned to stare up at me as if I were talking in a foreign language. Then he unhooked the chain and was looking under the truck to find the frame. I got down on my knees and looked to where he was hooking it. "There you go," I agreed. I brushed the mud off my knees and my jeans, thinking that I probably shouldn't have knelt on the ground. We disagreed about who was going to get into Daddy's truck and pull his truck out. He backed off, saying that if I really thought I knew what I was doing, then just to creep it. Yeah, I knew that. "You need to get in your truck and put it in neutral," I told him, when he thought he'd stand there and supervise. "You need to be able to stop your truck from rolling forward and hitting my truck once you're out of the ditch." He shook his head in disbelief and got into his truck. I put it in 4-wheel drive and inched forward until the chain caught, just like I'd seen Daddy do before. Then I gave it more gas and pulled the guy's truck out nice and slow. He honked the horn for me to stop once he was clear, but I had been watching. "What's your name, kid?" he asked as he put the chain back in the toolbox. I was standing by the open driver's door. "I'd rather not say. My dad will beat my ass if he knows I was out driving without him," I answered. He laughed, but then something seemed to occur to him. "Hey, you're that kid that everybody talks about. The one that plays piano like Mozart at the VFW, and who did some kind of hocus pocus voodoo shit on some people down at the Pentecostal church." "Yeah, it's pretty fucking scary, isn't it?" I asked sarcastically. He actually paused to think about that. I couldn't believe it. I'd only been kidding. Just for that, I was hoping the aliens visited him. His mood sobered and he became serious. Yeah, I need to be going, he said. But why is it scary? I asked back. I was really irritated now because I sensed his fear and I'd done nothing wrong. Because you're just a little kid, and if you can do that, then what else are you capable of? Hell, what will you be capable of in the future? He answered as he opened the truck door and got in. He seemed to be in a big hurry to leave. I just stared at him as he spun out, his tires kicking up gravel and mud as he got the hell out of Dodge. I was so blown away by the words he'd spoken. I was suddenly certain that I could do a lot more things that people wouldn't understand, and that my power would only grow as I grew older, as he had said. Was I really the monster he thought I was? I sat in the truck for a moment, then I drove home and went to my room. I sat on my bed and my room burst into flames. If I hadn't been so upset, I would have thought the scene was the coolest thing ever. The flames were tall and colorful, and it wasn't as hot as I would have thought. But then the smoke curled through the air and was choking me. I coughed and rubbed the smoke from my eyes. I looked up to find myself sitting in front of a charred door. Later down the line, I'd call that door level 3. A person came out of the door. She looked like me, which made no sense. Come on in. This is where you belong. They can't hurt you here. We'll roast bad memories and torture the people that have hurt you, she said in more of an evil whisper. Her soulless eyes scared me. I understood that she was the devil. Your parents are here, she added as she gestured through the door. I stepped aside so I could look inside. I gasped as the couple who raised me until I was 4 smiled at me. I was ecstatic to see them, and I jumped at my feet calling to them. A sudden force from behind me held me back as I heard my mother say in a firm voice, No, baby, don't be deceived. As she said that, the couple that smiled at me through the door vanished into dust. I turned around to my mother's voice and caught a glimpse of them both. I was about to throw myself in their arms when an even harder force pulled me back to my room where Daddy was yelling my name and shaking me. He had an absolute look of terror on his face. Oh, Daddy, I exclaimed as I burst into tears because my parents were gone and because the whole episode had been in my mind. My parents had died long ago, and my mind was looking for a way to handle it all. He threw his arms around me and held me tightly, and I realized that we were both crying. I had never known my dad to cry before. I couldn't wake you. I thought you'd stop breathing, he choked out. People think I'm a monster, Daddy. You, Bob, and Nancy are all afraid of me, of what I can do. Nobody understands, I cried. What? That's not true. We love you, he said as he pulled away to look at me. You don't have to lie. I know the truth, and I can live with it if you'll not be afraid of me. And this has nothing to do with love. You can love someone and still be afraid of them, I told him as I angrily brushed away my tears. He brushed the wetness from his face and paused, thinking of how to answer me. Yeah, I know, you and everyone else are scared of the hocus-pocus voodoo shit that happened at the Pentecostal church, a speed racer, and of the aliens. Well, I don't care if you don't believe me, but can you just not look at me as if I'm a monster? I didn't ask for this power or this life. I'd rather just be a normal nobody like everyone else, I rambled. God, I really hated when I rambled on like a baby. Shush, shush, Daddy whispered. Let's both just calm down and relax. He pulled my reluctant body back to him and held me. My pounding heart seemed really loud as we sat there. What if I kept getting older and no one ever loved me? Some of the things you're able to do and some of the things you claim to be able to do are really hard to comprehend, he finally said. Especially to these people who are closed-minded. Sometimes Bob, Nancy, and I are closed-minded. I knew that just about all the things I was able to do were hard to comprehend, not just some of them. And if people were going to look at me like I was a monster all my life, How was I possibly going to deal with that? I knew that I couldn't. I know this is a lot for you to deal with, Pumpkin, but you can't stop people from being scared. But you can stand strong in knowing that I'll always be there for you. And that will be the case even if you surprise me with your power. I'm only human, and I promise I'll do the best I can not to make you feel like you're different. I know having this power is a lot of responsibility for you, and I'm not sure why you've been saddled with it. I'll help you deal with it best that I can, he assured me. I appreciated that he was telling me the truth, and that he talked far more about the subject than he ever had in the past. Okay, that would be good, I murmured. He squeezed me, then let me pull away. Can we talk about what happened here? He asked. Yeah, I agreed, but I didn't offer anything further. I wanted him to say it. Oh, I figured that I knew what he was asking, but I was going to make him spell it out for me. I couldn't wake you up. It's every parent's nightmare. Do you know what happened? He asked. Yeah, I didn't want to talk about that. I didn't halfway know what happened. I was upset and I just laid down, that's all. I was thinking that I'd had a mental breakdown, but with all the crap that went on in my life, there was no telling. And there was no way I wanted to end up in the psych ward with them trying to figure it out. I'd seen on TV how that could happen. They'd put electrodes on my head and make it explode. Ain't nobody got time for that. Did you eat anything or drink anything that you shouldn't have, or take any drugs? You can be honest if someone gave you drugs. I knew that I didn't need drugs or alcohol to take my mind places. No, I know better, I replied. He paused to see if I had anything else to say. Where have you been today? He asked casually. He reached over and picked up the Hershey bars I'd bought and flipped them through his hands. I sighed in defeat. He had apparently noticed something about the truck, then found the Hershey bars in it. I totally fucked up. I had moved the seat to a more forward position and changed the radio station without setting them back. I could do nothing except tell him the entire story. He glared at me as I explained the ride to the 7-Eleven, and then I felt fear from him as I explained how I'd pulled the guy's truck out of the ditch. But then he sympathized with me when I told him about the conversation between me and the guy, and how he'd looked at me as if I were a monster. After Daddy had talked to me and made me feel better, he lectured me about what I'd done. Girl, I swear you're going to drive me to drinking, he remarked as he stood up. I'm going to see if my truck has any damage. Seriously, Dad? I griped to him. I did everything right like I've seen you do before. From easing the truck forward until the chain caught, then slowly pulling the truck out of the ditch. And I didn't even scratch your trucking the chain out of the toolbox. He chuckled under his breath. Yeah, you're a model student. But you know you're not legal to drive. It would be nice if you'd listen to me when I tell you to stay out of trouble. And what fun would that be? You're going to have a different attitude in a minute because I'm not letting you watch Speed Racer tonight. You're going to have a different attitude in a minute because I'm not letting you watch Speed Racer tonight. And I hope you practiced your violin lesson because we're going over to Bob's house so you can play it for him, he said as he met my eyes in a meaningful glance. I growled to myself, yeah, that hurt a lot more than getting my butt whipped.